So, do you know all of the possible notes? Can you tell me all of the existing musical notes? We're going to be reviewing again today the concepts that I have been laying out in the last several videos. We're here to make understanding music theory not only possible, but relatively easy. Relatively easy compared to maybe some of the stuff that you've been exposed to if you've tried to learn before. You see, I believe anybody, yes, you can learn music theory. I believe you can do it. And you got a lot of guts for even trying. I have to say, because I know what it feels like to come to the material and it's like you're looking at hieroglyphics. Like, what is that? I can't even like, I'm disoriented now that I tried to look at this, you know? So I know what it's like. I know what it's like. And in all likelihood, this ain't the first time you've looked up music theory. Right? So if you're here looking up music theory, it's because you already got what it takes. The main thing, resilience. You got to keep showing up and trying. And my purpose for doing this video is to make the process as easy as possible. As easy as possible. Like, because I believe that music theory is only hard because it's a gazillion little tiny topics. Like a jigsaw puzzle has you ever see those jigsaw puzzles got a million little pieces? Like, not the one you had as a kid that had like 20 pieces. I mean like the big ones. It's like that. It's a million little pieces. And they all sort of relate to each other too, like that, and they interconnect. But when you look at each little tiny piece by itself, just to understand that little piece is not hard at all. It's not hard. It's not that hard. And so I'm going through and I'm taking the little piece and I'm explaining it in a way that I believe anybody can understand, who's resilient and who has the guts to keep coming at it. And then I'll show you how to tie them all together. And my ultimate purpose is to be able to take this information and now apply it in real life to an instrument. To make music with this stuff. That's all it is at the end of the day. This channel's called Guitar from the Heart. I want to be able to play the guitar from my heart and have fun with that when I do. See, like, but if I'm stuck on all of the jargon and the technical term and I can't do it, you understand, like it's too much blockage, too much hindrance, and I can't do that. So we're here to make music, understanding music, easy. So let's go ahead and do that. A little more of that, all right? Let's review the concepts that I've reviewed from the beginning of this music theory series. You have music is made of pitches. You have low pitches, you have high pitches, right? Those are two extremes, and this what they do is they assign what they call notes to the different pitches that go la 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 la, la as it goes up, right? And they're called notes. And they're defined as a specific pitch. It's exactly this high or low. You understand? And what they do then is they have to give them names. Because how do you know what I'm talking about if I don't give something a name? Right? If I say, well, I'm wearing one of these. I'm wearing one of these right here. Right? And it's got one of these on it. You don't know what I'm talking about unless you can see it. But if I say, hey, I'm wearing one of these hoodies and like it got a hood and it's keeping me warm right now, then even if you're not watching, you can understand what I'm saying. So the same way we need to do that with notes. We need to be able to say, well, this note is called this, so you know which note I'm referring to, even if you can't hear it. I'm referring to this pitch. Here, I'm gonna write it down on sheet music and show you it's this pitch. You know what I mean? And there's symbols that represent each note if you write it down. And if you learn how to write music, you can write it down on a paper. As my phone dispositions itself on the bumps, we're good again. And so the notes are given names, and the names that they are given in the form of the musical alphabet, which in the musical alphabet is the same alphabet you learned, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but instead of H, I, J, K, M, N, M, P, we have, it goes up until G and then it stops. So there's no H. It goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then the next higher note after G, it is a higher note, but it's higher. We call it A again. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It just keeps going over and over again, okay, like this. And each letter represents a pitch, and the notes are given specific names, which the name is the letter, okay? Goes from A to G, and then when it gets to the next higher A, we call that an octave. It's up an octave to the next higher octave. Or if you're going down, you go down into a lower octave, it will still be A through G down there too. But then we said there's more information, there's more pitches in between the letters. There's more notes. There's notes between the letter notes. So you have notes that they're given a name, and the name is a letter of the musical alphabet. But in between those letter notes, you actually have more notes. Because why not? You know, I mean, why not? We got to make it complicated because it's music theory. But we're trying to demystify the complication here. So we got A through G and then A again, right through G again. But in between those letters, you got notes too, and they have names. But their name is given in the form of a sharp or a flat. Sharp or flat. A sharp is a note. It's a note that's one note above a reference note. So what I mean is that if I'm talking about the note that's the next higher note than A, well, we said we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but the note that's higher than A, we're doing a review here. Do you remember like in high school, or junior high school, how you would do reviews? Those were like my favorite lessons. Like, I don't remember nothing for the whole midterm, but like then the teacher would do a review and show all the topics again, right? Before we go on to the test. That's what I'm doing here. I'm doing a review of everything I've talked about here, real quick. So we're up to speed and we see how all the jigsaw puzzle pieces fit together. We're reviewing all the concepts and seeing how it all fits together, and like, oh wow, like I've amassed a pretty decent amount of knowledge now. Yes, you have. And it's just gonna continue like this. We're gonna keep adding more jigsaw puzzle pieces until we get the big picture. Which in spoiler alert, the picture never ends. Like it's a never ending picture. It just keeps going bigger and bigger to how far you want to learn. But my purpose here is to give the foundation and to get you to the point where you can make music, make your own song. You can understand, like, in simpler genres of music that's not like jazz and fusion and all this stuff, you can understand the basics. And we want to do that and make it simple. So we're doing the midterm review here, but even though like we're very early in the game, so it's not really the midterm. So between them notes A through G, we got sharps and flats is what they're called. And a sharp is the note above a reference note. So if I say A sharp, A is my reference note, and sharp means I'm taking the reference note and raising it by one note. So A sharp can be thought of as the note that's above A, the note that's immediately above A. Understand? If I say D flat, flat is the opposite of sharp. It's the note immediately below a note. So my reference note would be D, and then my flat symbol would tell me I want to lower the note by one note. So it's the note that's immediately below D is D flat. So all of these notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they have these sharps and flats in between, with the exception of B, C, and E, F. B and C are literally right next door to each other. So the note that's above B can't be B sharp, it's C. And the note that's up below C is not C flat, it's B. Even though technically they can be written this way, but don't worry about that for now. You want to know that between B, C, there's not a physical note between those two lettered notes. And there's not a physical letter between E and F either. Okay? Between all of the other letters, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, between all of those other letters, there's a sharp or a flat. And the thing is, like, there's one note between each three groups. So what I do is I take the two letters that are next to each other, like say C and D. C and D are right next to each other, but I think of it as a 3-note cluster. I have C and I have D, but I have the note that's between C and D. Well, what's the note that's between C and D? Well, it's the note that's above C, right? What's the note above C called? C sharp. But you could also think of the same exact note as the note that's below D. The note that's above C is the same note as the note that's below D, because C and D only have one note between. So it depends on which note you're referencing. If I'm referencing the C, then the note that's between C and D is the C sharp, or the note above C. If I'm looking at it from the perspective of D and I'm saying, oh no, it's the note that's lower than D. The note between C and D is the note that's lower than D. Then I could call the same note D flat. So it's one note that's between C and D, but we can give it two alternative names. We could call it a C sharp, or we can call it a D flat. It's the same exact note though. It just has two names. Like how my brother he's known by everybody calls him by his middle name, even though nobody practically knows what his first name is. But that's his first name on his birth certificate. His first name is his true name, but everybody calls him by his middle name. He has two names. Most of us have two names. Even if you don't have a middle name, you probably have a nickname that somebody calls you, right? So the letter, we can call it by two different names. It doesn't change what it is. It's one letter. I mean, it's one note, right? So we said that between all the letters like this, so between F and G, right, we have F sharp or G flat, depending on how you look at it. And really depending upon other factors that I will get into the future will determine which name you call it by, whether the F sharp or the G flat. Also between G and A, right, as we go to the next octave higher, there's a note between. So we have G, the note between G and A, and then A. We can call the note between either G sharp or A flat, depending on how we look at it. Okay, so this is just a quick brush up on everything. The only thing is if you're dealing with B and C, you don't have a note between. If you're dealing with E and F, you don't have a note between. So I was saying, like, if you want to practice this as a practice drill, you could do a 3-note practice trick where you think about the two notes. Okay, my two notes are D and E. Okay, then you go through a process. You ask yourself first, is it B, C, or E, F? D and E. No, it's not. It's not B, C, or E, F. Okay, now proceed to the next step. Okay, it has a note between. So this is a 3-note cluster, 3-note group. What do I call the note between D and E? And you go through the same process that I just did. It's either D sharp or E flat. So again, let's do A and B. Between A and B, first thing you do, is it B, C, or E, F? No, it's not. Okay, so then that means there's a note between A and B. Okay, what's the note between A and B? It's either A sharp or it's B flat, depending on how you want to look at it. And then the same thing, if you say, well, what about B and C? B and C. Well, is it B, C, or E, F? Yes, it is. It's one of those. It's B, C. Okay, so that means that there's no note between because of the exception rule. The B, C, E, F exception rule, there's no note between B and C. There's no note between E and F. Okay? So, and that's where you can find all of the notes. So, do you know all of the possible notes? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You got this. You got this. So this is where we are. This is what we're up to until right now. And I'm going to be putting out a whole bunch of short videos where I practice going between each letter. I'll probably do a short where I review this process, and then I'll just do an example for each, and then you can have it on loop if you want to practice. You want to have this like command, like like the back of your hand. You want to know how to find all of the notes. Today, this is the midterm review, but I'm going to show one more topic. I'm going to show one more concept here. Okay, I'm going to start to introduce one more concept. The concept. So what I want to do now is I want to start to talk about how to create scales and how to be in key. So now we're getting into the real musical stuff. Up until now, we've been really mostly just talking about giving things names, giving concepts, explaining how things work. But then we're gonna now go into giving more names and more concept, but it's gonna start to shift towards really musical things. Okay, more musical things. But anyway, in order to do that, I need to introduce the concept of steps. Okay, now I did talk about intervals. I talked about intervals. I introduced the term and what it means. A step is an interval, or the distance between two notes. Remember I said the distance between two notes is an interval? That was another thing for your midterm. Don't forget that. Put an asterisk. Right? So that was one of the things I did talk about. There's going to be things in my other videos, because they're longer, that I might have skipped over here. But interval is the distance between two of those pitches. And we're going to be giving terminologies for how to identify the exact distance. And there's different ways to think about it, but one term is the term step. You know how you walk up the steps if you live upstairs or whatever? So each step is in a certain amount of distance upward that you're going, right? And so likewise in pitch, we're going up in pitch as we go, and it's like steps. A step, what they do is they call it a step, or a half of a step. A half step. And really a half of a step is really how the smallest unit that things are broken down into. What is a half step? This is not going to be on the quiz, but it's going to be on the next exam, in the next marking period. But I'm going to introduce. They used to do this too in school, I think, for me. Sometimes some of them teachers. Oh, the good old. Those were the days. Those were the days. Oh, look at that! I did a high pitch. My impersonation is usually a little better. Got a little kind of throat thing going on. But anyway, this is the new topic. Basically, the half of a step is the smallest interval that we deal with. It's basically when a note is next to each other. Remember when I said that B, C, and E, F, they don't have a third note between them? So another way you could say that in the musical language, in the way that musicians speak, using music theory concepts, is to say B and C are a certain distance away from each other. And what is that distance? Well, they're one note away from each other. They're right next to each other, I've been saying, right? But in music, you wouldn't say that. because a musician wouldn't talk like that, because there's terminologies that I haven't talked yet that to explain these things. A musician will say that B is a half step away from C. A half of a step. Okay, a half step. A half step means just one note away from the note that you're already on. So you could go a half step up from B and you would land on C. Or you could go a half step down from B and land on B flat. See, because B flat is the note that's the next note down from B. So I'm going to start talking in terms of half step, because whenever we're talking about the note that we're right next door to, that's a half of a step, half step. I'm going to start using the terminology, and I'll go back and forth between saying the note that's right next to it and saying half step until it's so solid in your memory that I could stop talking about the note that's next to the note and just talk about half steps, and you know what I mean. Because when we give things names, it's so you can know what I mean. You can know what I'm talking about because I named it, right? So I'm naming the interval from one note to the next note over, higher or lower. The distance of that interval is a half step. And it's half of a step because there's a thing called a whole step, a whole entire step, which is 2 notes away. That's logical, right? So if a half a step is 1 note away, then 2 notes away is a half and a half, which makes a whole. If you're any good at fractions, half and half makes the whole thing, right? But most of us are good enough at fractions to be able to handle that. If you like, you know, when you would go halfsies with your siblings with a cheeseburger or something, you cut it in half, and no matter how you cut it in half, like the half that you give them looks smaller. Something like it always somehow looks smaller than half. I don't know how. Even if you give them the bigger half, it looks smaller. Like, I don't know. It's like a law of the universe. But like, they don't believe you if you started to eat yours that like that was half. I don't know. Like I like, these are things that I think about. Because I'm you know, I'm a little normal, you know what I mean? Anyway, a half and a half makes a whole. So if you have a half step is 1 note away, then a whole step is 2 notes away. All right, so that's the new topic for today. Nice and easy. There's different intervals. They can be explained in terms of steps, though. It's one way they can be explained. A distance can be explained, a distance away from between 2 notes can be explained in terms of steps, okay, or half steps. And we'll be going more. Nice, good review. I hope you're feeling confident. You know that you got this. You can do it. You can do it. Just keep coming back. Keep reviewing. Be patient with yourself. Be like, don't rush yourself. Slow is fast. Slow is fast when it comes to learning. The more you slow down and give yourself the time to actually process, your brain is a very powerful supercomputer. I don't care who you are. You can do it. You can do it. And I believe in you. Peace.